Mhm. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gold Rush Mastermind. I'm kind of giggling this morning because I realize as we started our first mastermind last week, I just kind of jumped in and I started talking, and then I realized I never really introduced myself. And I think it's because I've gotten to know so many of you over this past year in our beautiful Noble Goldman community. But I do realize now that there are some people who are joining us that are not part of our Noble Goldman mastermind community for conscious freedom creators. And that was kind of silly of me not to introduce myself. So I'm Toni Taylor. And for those of you who do not know me, I am a former golf player and coach. I'm a life member of the LPGA, and you're probably thinking, well, what the heck does that got to do with gold and silver? Well, what it has to do with is the fact that my husband and I are, I guess you could say we're what we would call serial entrepreneurs. We've never really been 9 to 5. We've always been self-employed, and we're always interested in the next adventure. And my husband, especially, he's always looking for new solutions to problems. He just has always thought outside the box. And I'm a girl that just loves to be on an adventure. And I thought, what a better way to see the world than to chase a little white ball. So I started my career in the golfing world. But I also had what they would call the dark night of the soul about 7 years ago. And I went on this grand adventure of personal development. And I've always been open to learning, and I've always wanted to learn so much more. I've always been pulled towards people's wisdom and experience. And this is why I'm here in Noble Goldman, because we are linking arms and hearts with others who have been on grand adventures and have learned through their personal experiences. And one of the things that is very important to me is I'm really passionate about wellness and doing it in a very holistic way, but I'm also very passionate about growing my wealth. And it seems to me I made, as you had saw in my post, I did a $1.2 million mistake and didn't even know it until I was introduced to gold and silver in this beautiful community called 7K Metals. That's not really what we're really focusing on today, but I want you to know that is a vehicle if you're interested after I introduce our special guest today. And when I talk about meeting people who have, sharing their experiences and who have, new knowledge and new wisdom from their personal experience, this is what I'm referring to. I got to meet Curtis Harland, amazing human being, passionate, integral, heart-minded, and so much wisdom. He has been both in traditional business and also in the world of online, in what we would call the network marketing space. And I love anything that allows people to empower themselves. So I'm always open to learn. And I'm so excited, Curtis, thank you for joining me today and being my special guest here at the Gold Rush Mastermind. We are all new into learning how, quite honestly, and everybody knows me now, that I just kind of call it like it is, black and white. We've been duped, haven't we? How is it that we do not know more about gold and silver, other than what our grandparents used to say, oh, just put a little bit aside and da 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 da. But it's just so much bigger than that, isn't it, Curtis? I mean, since I joined the family of 7K, I am just, the education that I've learned through yourselves and others who are very passionate about empowering others, who have created wealth in other areas. I mean, this isn't about gold and silver being the be and end all. This is about learning about a good defense in your wealth strategy, but now we also are understanding a great offense as well. And I've invited you because you have really shared so much in this community of gold and silver. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and how we can empower these amazing humans as well into the world of gold and silver. And why do we want to do that? So take it away, Curtis.
Well, first of all, Toni, thank you for having me on this morning. I say that I'm nobody from nowhere, but I grew up on a farm in Northeast Missouri. And, you know, like anybody, I had an entrepreneur spirit. I didn't come from a wealthy family. My parents were divorced at a young age, and you know, we just in and out of that lifestyle, and you just didn't have a lot of money. And I can remember when I was probably about 11 years old, going to what we would call like a flea market or a garage sale to try and buy bicycles. My friends would always get bought bicycles, and I would have to go to the garage sale because, you know, I didn't have a lot of money. My family didn't have a lot of money, and I would buy used ones. And I can remember when I was about 13, my dad actually had to build a little shed. It was like 12 by 12, and it was just full of bicycles. But that's what I did. As you know, I took multiple bikes to make one bike, just so I could ride with my friends. And you know, from that, it just kind of stayed with me. I always was into trying to make money different ways. Didn't know a lot. I'm not well educated. I do have a PhD though. I grew up on a farm and have post hole digger, so that's where I got my PhD from. So anyway, you know, when I was about 24 years old, I knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else really quick, because I was the type person that I was going to put in as many hours as I could work. And my first job, I kid you not, I worked 14 hours a day. I just wanted to work because I wanted what it would give me. You know, if I was making $10 an hour, I knew that 14 hours would give me $140 and I could do this with it. And I did that for a few weeks, but then the owner of the company came to me and he said, we're not going to allow you're working too much overtime. And he didn't like paying that, because I would actually work about 2 weeks in 1 week. And he didn't like paying me $15 an hour for that second 40 hours. And, you know, he stopped me at doing that. So I basically started a parking lot striping business on the side. We actually stripe parking lots, and that grew because I went from one job to the next job where I was doing road construction for a company, and the foreman of that job was having trouble getting a highway striper to come do it. And I said, well, hey, if you guys would give me this job, I'll do it. You know, and lo and behold, that's how my construction company started. In 1994, I started my construction company with basically just a little walk behind paint striper, and we did that for probably 2 or 3 years, and then I finally bought one of the big trucks, and we did that, and then it grew from there into seeding and mulching on the highways, doing storm sewer, doing paving, doing grading. So I went from being just me to having over 300 employees in about a 15-year period. And that was pretty stressful. But like everything, things change. You know, the phones that we talk on today are nothing like the phones that I can remember when I was doing my construction. If you guys remember the old bag phones, we used to carry them around in our trucks, and that antenna that had a magnet we'd stick on top, and it'd blow off, then you wouldn't have no reception. And you know, things have changed and they evolve. And you know, money is kind of no different. You know, I if I had one thing to share this morning is that people understand the difference between fiat currency and sound money. Fiat currency is the paper stuff. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It just looks a little different. The sound money or real money is gold and silver. And every country recognizes that. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States or you're in Canada or you go to France or wherever. They know what a gold is, whether it's 1 ounce gold Cougaran or 1 ounce silver eagle. And for me, you know, because I was doing construction, I knew a lot about this. I'd had no clue about gold and silver when I got introduced to it. And that's what I have over the past 2 years tried to educate myself on, is why are things the way they are? So I looked at, you know, when the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 in the United States, what they were doing. And, you know, we all currency was actually backed by gold in that time period. And then some countries went off of the gold standard. And then in 1971, the United States went off the gold standard, and it turned every world currency into fiat currency, which means that the governments can just print as much as they want. So I started looking at that and started studying, why does it say on the US currency anyway, it says that this note, it's a note, is for all legal and public debt. And so I was trying to figure out all that. Who is that? Well, when the government, I guess our government anyway, prints money, it has to be accounted for. So some of these big banks out there put it on their ledger as a asset, and they just can create more and more and more, and the Federal Reserve can, and it has to be assigned to a big bank, and then they have to put it on there as a note. And it's nobody knows who actually owns the Federal Reserve, but there is a group of people that own it. It's nowhere, you can't find that, but there are some of these big banks out there. And then I started digging into gold and silver, and I started looking into, why in 1843, it was written in Article 1 of the United States Constitution that the only real money can be gold and silver. And when I tried to, go back to all that, it's like, okay, what are they trying to hide? So anyway, I got involved in 7K and started learning about stuff. And I'm the type person that, I'll stick a toe in and just try and learn a little bit, but I'm always listening to outsiders to get a second opinion, somebody that doesn't feel the same way I do, just to kind of see different opinions and then kind of come to a conclusion. And what I was seeing, and this is what I was taught, is, and this would be the defensive side that Tony was talking about, is that a lot of people were taught to acquire gold and silver bullion because, the history of gold and silver has continued to climb up. It'll have dips, but it has always continued to increase in value. And when you look at the paper money, it has always decreased in value. And the reason is because they just print more of it. Well, when they went off of the gold standard, who collected the gold? That was one of the things I looked at in gold and silver. And one of them was the silver. I've tried to understand what an ETF was and why the paper gold and silver exists and what some of those big banks do. Well, when I searched who was the largest holder of silver, JP Morgan was number 2, which is also Chase Bank, which they're also considered number 3 because they're part of the COMEX, where they owned, JP Morgan Chase owns 1,000-ounce bars, and they sell ETFs, which is the paper gold and silver, to individuals. And what that actually means is that 1,000-ounce bar can be owned by multiple people. And it does not become a problem until somebody wants it physically. And that's what they call selling shorts, and why some of this has happened. But for me, I've watched JP Morgan. 2 years ago, they owned about 400 million ounces. Today, they own over 1 billion ounces of silver. So what's going on? I don't know for sure.
So what I'd like to, I'm not sure who that is. Hang on a second. What I'd like to ask you, and I'll ask the audience here, because that was amazing. What an amazing overview. Wow. And what an amazing background. So you really had that entrepreneurial spirit. That's incredible. And it seemed to have driven you into just wanting more. It's interesting how some of us have that, and then some of us how it got squished. But what I want to ask everybody that's joined me, and thank you everybody for joining, is could either put a thumbs up or a 1 in the chat. Does anybody hold silver currently? No, actually, I'll ask this first. Who doesn't own silver or gold currently in their wealth strategy portfolio? Put a 1 or a thumbs up or a hand up. That's good too, right? Okay. So obviously we're all here to understand. I really want to look into what you had just had said, Curtis. Who is actually, I'm going to use the word collecting, but I'm going to call it more like hoarding the gold and silver, because you had made a statement how you went on a quest to start trying to figure out this thing, right? Which we know is actually fake. And it gives the government without a gold back, as we know. If it's not gold back, they can just keep doing whatever they're doing. But you had said that we're trying to figure out who's collecting all the gold and silver. And you said you had a really tough time finding that out, because it seemed that why wouldn't more people know about it, which is really kind of disturbing when you think about it, that we didn't learn any of this stuff and we're just finding out now, which is still a good thing. It's never too late. That's why I have you here. and why all these beautiful people have joined, because we're all here to help each other. And I just really feel so betrayed by our society, and not that it's their fault, because you only know what you know until you know. And hopefully, as we learn and grow, we'll do better. And I am just astonished at how many of us do not hold gold and silver. I didn't. And how many people I know that don't. And I've just made it my personal quest to really help people understand how important this is. So how did you begin to gather this information so that we could, so that you really started to pay more attention to this instead of this? How did you go about doing that?
Well, with my background in business, I was always dealing with banks and financial institutes. And I started looking at what were they doing, and what our school system teaches. Why does our school systems here in the United States not teach us about gold and silver, about money? They'll teach you a little bit about wealth and about, how all that works. But what they want to do is give you an education and teach you to be an employee. So that this is my belief, that the wealthy, they need employees. The wealthy want people educated that here, just like I was, is that go out there and trade your time for money, so that they can control you. If that's, I hate using that word control, but that's basically what it is. And so I started looking at, well, I grew up poor. Why did my parents not know about this? And so I look back at my parents and, what did they do? They went to school and they were taught to go out, get a good education and go out and get a good job. So I look back at my granddad. He was taught the same thing. Go to school, get a good education, go out and get a good job. Well, then, my granddad was a little bit of an entrepreneur, because he had a job, but he also was a part-time farmer, where he, raised cattle and stuff like that, and row crop. And I watched a financial institute collapse him, basically because I think they seen an opportunity. In 2008, when things got pretty tough, I think the banks actually seen a way for them to make money. It come time to renew his revolving line of credit. And what a revolving line of credit is it's an amount of money that a bank looks at of what you got as assets. Well, when the real estate market crashed, they basically, took his 1,000-acre farm and said that he didn't have enough value there because it had declined, and that you were either going to have to, your note was going to become due. We were not going to renew it. This is what aggravated me, was that bank took his land and everything, and sold it in an auction. And he didn't fight. He just basically threw his arms up and didn't fight, and forced him down the bankruptcy road. And here was the sad thing, is that bank sold his land for almost $300,000 more than what he owed at the bank. And the bank kept that $300,000 extra. And that has haunted me. And that's why I'm sorry if somebody on this call is a banker. I have tried.
I don't think anybody here is a banker.
I have tried to separate myself from them. So then I just started thinking one day, I got a line of credit. What does my bank have as as collateral. Well, I actually had about $5 million worth of equipment. And I only had a $250,000 line of credit, but they had as collateral 250 or 5 million worth of my dozers, my track hoes, my dump trucks, my pickup trucks, tractors, all that equipment. And when I got involved in gold and silver, I just asked my banker the other day, I said, do you guys hold gold and silver as collateral? Well, sure. So if I would have had $250,000 in gold, I could have let the bank hold that as collateral and still done the same thing. And then they not had to have $5 million worth of equipment. So that's what I've done over the past 2 years is I don't owe a penny on my equipment now.
Okay, that is a very, very powerful statement. Did everybody hear what Curtis just said? He could swap in 250,000 worth of gold or silver versus $5 million of basically assets that are absolutely essential to making a living. And they hold that. That is very powerful. That type of knowledge, Curtis, is so powerful, which leads me into so this is really what you're talking about. This is your best defense, really, not just in poor government decisions or economic collapse, but it's also extremely powerful for your accumulation of wealth moving forward in the entrepreneurial spirit when you think about it.
Yep. Well, like I said, the wealthy are taught one thing and the poor are taught another thing. The wealthy are taught about gold and silver and to acquire it. The poor, which I grew up poor, I consider myself in the poor class. I was never taught about it. So I've had to learn from other people and, just research and study and why is this happening and why did my financial institute require me to have almost 20 times the asset of what my line of credit was, and why would it be okay just to take this amount of gold to equal that amount of line of credit? So I see that there are things that they just don't want to tell you. And when you look at the financial institutes and the investors and I'll call them these financial advisors, there's laws written out there that they can't legally make money on gold and silver. So that's why they would never tell us about it. They can make it on the ETFs because it's paper and it's all that is a line item. But the physical, they're not supposed to make a profit on the gold and silver. And if you ask about it, they legally have to tell you about it. But they are, so it's just, got me concerned and why some of the things are like that out there around us. And I've just been on a mission to try and, educate people about what I've learned and well, share this message.
First of all, God bless you. And I mean that sincerely, because this is exactly what these global masterminds are about. It's about meeting beautiful human beings like yourself who have, and we all have our stories, absolutely. But to listen to how the story of, your father and grandfather has haunted you, has really driven you to learn more. And this is so important. And then to learn that as we start to dig, that every financial institution out there, or whatever we want to call them, even including the education institution, let's just use the word institutions, they are all leading us towards this, to think that this is valuable versus something very tangible like God. I like to call it God's money. That's just me. I like to call it God's money because it was here when the earth was created and it's not going anywhere. And like you said, it hasn't gone down in value like this has. This is a forced value system, right? But I also like to believe that those institutions, and maybe I'm kind of, incorrect in my assumption, but I would have to say this little beauty has been completely suppressed as well, which is silver, which again is all connected to institutions and corporations and whatever things are going on, but we're getting smarter thanks to people like you, Curtis. And I really, truly appreciate you hopping on and sharing your wisdom and sharing your journey, because this is so important that we start to understand the power of this. Did everybody get that? If Curtis had this instead of the equipment, he would have been far better off. And yet nobody taught us that, which is, to me, truly sad, but also very powerful, because now I always say, well, once you know the rules of the game, and once you know the game, will you play the game differently? So I ask all of you, now that you know the power of God's money, sound money, gold and silver, will you take your next step into empowerment to protect and to build towards your wealth, and legacy? So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Curtis? Boy, I love all the smiles. This is good. You know that it's hit the heart when people are smiling, and I thank you all for that. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Curtis? Look at all my beautiful friends. Kasia, please go ahead.
So, hello, Curtis. My question is about what you said about those financial advisors that they are not allowed to, to work with silver and gold. Could you tell us a little bit more about this? This is like, I mean, you poked me like, I mean, I'm speechless. Could you please explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, the finance, at least I'm just talking about AG Edwards here in the United States. They're not legally supposed to make a profit on physical gold or silver. They can tell their clients about it, but basically it could be part of their client's portfolio, but they cannot legally make a profit on that. Where they make their profit at is in stocks and bonds, and the ETFs, gold and silver. So there's a big difference between physical and an ETF. ETF is a COMEX. So they could make a little bit there because that's paper. It's not physical. And that was kind of disturbing for me also when I found out that, some of these financial institutes with their licensing are not allowed to do that. So that just made me say,
That's a real suppression here, because there are especially in the United States, so many financial investors. I mean, each town has so many of them, and if they are really not allowed to do that, this is big. I mean, just to understand this one fact. I mean, there are a few more, but I think this one it's really like awakening one.
Yeah, and I'll kind of go back to, okay, so now we know about gold and silver. Here was the first question that I had. Okay, I see value in it. So where do I get it? I had no clue. Or who do you trust? There's so many scams out there, of people trying to sell you this and sell you that. And then is it real? So, those were some scary moments for me. I didn't want to let go of my paper money because I needed it, but I could see value in it. So then I started, looking around, and I found 7K here about 2 years ago, and I still was cautious. Believe me, I was cautious. I said, I want to meet you guys. What are you all about? And then they started sharing the stories of some of the things that I'd found out. And okay, so they created a membership model to allow the average person to buy gold and silver. I said, that's a phenomenal idea. When you go to buy gold and silver and to get it at the best price, those, I'll call them dealers, those dealers that sell gold and silver, they're in it to make a profit. But most of the best deals were for the wealthy. If you wanted to get the best deal on gold and silver, you had to buy $10,000, $100,000 worth of silver or gold to get the best pricing. And that's when, 7K come into play. Hey, we need to make this available for everyone. We're going to create a membership that we'll use our members as the buying power. We'll take on the buying, and then you let our members share in that benefit. So I said, that's kind of a no-brainer for me. If I can buy gold and silver at the best pricing, I want to be a member. So that's what I did, and that's how I got my toe in, and I started collecting some bullion, and I was on the defensive side, and I was saying, okay, I'm trading fake money for real money. And that was how I started. So that was, and here's what I like about, when you guys have probably heard the silver squeeze, and this is when I really understood what JP Morgan and BlackRock and some of them big financial institutes were doing. The silver squeeze
Can we just hang on a second? Does everybody understand what the silver squeeze is? I kind of made a statement where I said, I believe that they've been suppressing the price of this, which is silver.
Right.
Okay. So silver is very, and I'll let Curtis explain it because he's so good at this. This silver, an ounce of silver, the price of silver has been suppressed for a very long time. And there's a very good reason behind it. And as I went on this educational journey, with the amount of silver that they actually use, and I'll let Curtis explain it, just so you know, this should be worth a minimum 600 an ounce right now, minimum. So I'll let Curtis go. Go ahead, Curtis. Thank you.
Well, and silver is a commodity. Gold is a little bit of a commodity, but it's more known as money. And silver is a commodity, but it's also been money. In the United States, you used to be able to take a 1 ounce silver coin, walk into a bank, and exchange it for one paper dollar because it was lighter. So farmers that would get silver coins, they would take them and, carry them in their bags. They would take them to the bank, and the bank would give them, they were called silver certificates, which $1 equaled 1 ounce of silver. And then in 1964, when the US government started adding nickel and copper to the silver, it really declined the silver coins. So then there was only the difference between real silver, but the US government wanted you to exchange in the fake stuff. So that's when I really noticed that these financial institutes are trying to squeeze stuff down. They're wanting to hoard it and don't want us to have it. So, but silver is also a commodity. It's used in electronics. It's used in solar panel. It's used in batteries. It's a great conductor for electricity. And I believe that some of these big banks have kind of manipulated that silver price with the ETFs, the paper silver, because they want the price to stay down so they make a greater profit. And when you watch what happens, and talking about that silver squeeze, this was the Reddit group. All right. The Reddit group was a bunch of millennials that were they were playing on an app called Robinhood, and they were buying shares in companies. And there was a company called GameStop that they were buying shares in. And GameStop was a company that these financial institutes were selling short. Well, here's the story behind the whole thing. When I did the research, the owner of Robinhood borrowed money from Maryland Capital. Maryland Capital was the financial institute that actually funded Robinhood, and Maryland Capital could see everything going on inside of Robinhood. Maryland Capital also was a major holder in a company called GameStop, where they were selling short, and this Reddit group was using the app Robinhood to go in there and buy all these shares, which was causing Maryland Capital to lose money. So what Harland Capital did is they said, whoa, wait a minute. We're not letting you guys get any more shares. You're only going to be able to buy one share. And that made that group mad. So then they said, we're going after the physical item. And they went after silver. And on February 2nd of 2020, they made a passion to buy 1 million ounces of silver. And it almost collapsed the COMEX, which is basically the London Bank. They got all the physical silver out there, but about 13%. And if they had a little bit more money, they would have collapsed that ETF in there. So that's what had happened. Well, here's the thing. Silver was about $16 an ounce. From that day forward, it has skyrocketed. It got to $49 an ounce over almost that weekend. And now it's kind of settled back down to about 24, 20, but it's never dropped back down to 17. It's staying around that 22 to 26. And it's because these big banks are manipulating all this, and they just don't want us as the normal people to have it. They want to control it. So
and that's the other thing too, is that go and try to find, I think that's the other reason why there's so much scamming going on out there. Go and try and find a place that you can trust to buy the silver and have it delivered on time. And that was the other thing that I really, really appreciated, was the ease of being able to access, with no minimums, to be able to start accumulating the silver or the gold. That was just mind blowing for me. And so I want to thank you for sharing that. This is so powerful, you guys. And Curtis, you're just delivering so much wisdom and so much nuggets that I had no idea about. I mean, it's just, I feel so empowered these last couple of months, because I feel like I have a foundation. I have a foundation for my wellness, but I never really felt like I had a foundation for my wealth, if that makes sense to everybody. So that's that defense strategy. We can have lots of offense strategy, because that's what diversification is for. But to know that you have exactly how you shared with the gold, with your line of credit, to know that you could have a strong defense and then be able to diversify and start, doing different options is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. That was amazing. Kasia, you have a question, please.
Yeah, my next question is, because I've heard stories from some people that, when they go to the local jewelry or whatever shops where they sell different coins. So my question is, what's the strategy behind those people, local people, bashing down basically the value of coins? Why they do it? What's the theory behind that?
I believe that, they're business owners and they want to try and make a profit, and they're trying to keep that price down so that they can make a greater profit. I walk into coin shops all the time, and coin shops are more into the collectibles and the very rare coins. That's what they focus on. And I just kind of wander around listening to stories and listening to people. Well, I was in I don't remember if it's Chicago. No, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I walked into a coin shop, and this guy brought in a bunch of silver coins, and I just was kind of standing close, and I kept kind of scooting over so I could kind of see what he had. And I knew that he had a lot of, we call it junk silver, but it's silver that is basically 90% silver. And they were only wanting to give him spot price for that silver, which basically would be just the melt value of it. And what they do is they'll buy a group of coins like that, and then they will go out and they'll melt it down and they'll sell it for pure silver. They'll take all the real silver out, sell it for pure silver, and get a greater price for it. So that's why I believe that some of these, guys are trying to bash it. But you'll also get people that are in the financial world that just don't want you to know about it. And I consider it flat lying to you that, they tell you don't get that, but yet they're buying it. So why would somebody tell you not to do it and then go do it? It didn't make sense. But
Yeah,
and that's very true, because Robert Kiyosaki, for a lot of people who know Robert Kiyosaki, he's been talking about God's money for how many years now? And he keeps saying over and over, the reason why I'm rich, and he walks around with his silver and gold coins. The reason why I'm rich is because of these. And he keeps holding these up, and he says, but none of you do that. No matter how much I keep talking about it, I can't express it enough that you need to go get yourself some gold and silver. So of course I showed the video last week, Curtis, about would you choose a silver gold bar or a chocolate bar? And all these people in the video chose the chocolate bar. And I kind of went, well, Robert was right. It was kind of like, but the fact is that why do people do that? They keep saying, oh, because I can't eat the silver bar. Well, here's a newsflash. You can't eat your credit card either.
Yep.
Okay. You can't eat your credit card either. But we have people, I've met people, and and I'm about to do it as well. I guarantee you that anybody will barter with you with real gold and real silver. You will be able to get anything you want through this. It's just whatever people see value in, and everybody knows the value of silver and gold. I mean, history has proven, has it not, Curtis? I mean, history has proven that the fiat, which is really fascinating to me, I never even realized that before, this note is legal tender for all debts.
Yep.
Public and private. Wow. We all know that this is about as good as wallpaper now because, oh, that's right, it's worth about this much. This is your buying power now for that dollar, a nickel. That's what that inflation is. And if you don't understand inflation, I know Curtis we have some beautiful slides that I could share as well, but here's a really good example of inflation because it's sometimes hard to wrap around your brain. And what I shared last week, Curtis, just to fill you in, is that I went through the whole inflationary thing and you explained it very well, that as soon as the government, the US government, took away the gold-backed standard in 1971, it just gave the government just, for free for all for just doing whatever they wanted. There was no more discipline and therefore our buying power. So the best way that I explained it, even though I'm showing, how many dollars it takes and this and that, the best way to explain it is think of 1950s, 1960s. You could only have to have one parent who had to work that could raise a family and actually have a fairly decent life with one income. Now you can barely get by with two incomes, and the stress and the overwhelm is through the moon. And it all has to do with the fact that and I'm going to say it again, we've all been duped. We've all been duped to buy into their fake monetary system and be enslaved to it because we have no foundation in our wealth strategy. And I am proud to say the fact that I now do, and I'm excited to share it. And I want to keep sharing it with as many people as I can. And I want to keep inviting guests like yourself, Curtis, who have been on this journey, have seen it firsthand, the power that these people will wield because they are not sharing the secrets of sound money. And it is a secret. And I'm going to use that word. It is a secret, or else we would all have known about it growing up. So thank you so much for sharing today. And I'm really excited to keep on going on this journey with you and with all our other 7K Metals family. And I know that many of our Noble Goldman members will be joining us as well very shortly. And any more questions? One more question?
I have one more question. Can we discuss maybe next time, because today we already took so much of your time, but I'm really curious to discuss, opening in other countries. What is the process? Because I have few people interested in few countries, and when they get the link to register, sometimes it's like, how do you register if that country is not listed on the link? So that's, I think, really important conversation that I would like to participate in. Thank you.
Oh, great question, Kasia. Yeah. Curtis is very close to the founders of 7K. He works very closely with them. They're very excited about opening other countries. So that is a great question. And I will let Curtis answer that. Curtis, can you let him know the 7 countries that are open right now and the conversations that are going on for other countries, please?
Yeah, we're open in the United States, of course, in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and Singapore. So right now, those are the 7 countries that were open. The reason that we're taking just a little bit of time is because of the taxes. When we go to ship something out of the US to another country, there's a tax that government puts onto it that makes the pricing just a little bit different. And then also safety of the metals. Some countries do not have the border controls or customs when metals are shipped out of one country because that government wants to hoard it. So those are some of the issues that we got to work through, and it's just going to take us a little bit of time. We've got 7K vaults that are actually in different areas besides the United States, where we'll be able to have those vaults there and be able to ship, a little bit easier into other countries. So just give us a little bit of time, but we will be in a lot of the countries. It's just going to take us a little bit of time to get through that process.
Thanks, Curtis. Yeah, I remember when I think it was Jason, the CEO, he was mentioning that he says the great thing about gold and silver, unlike health and wellness products and other products, there's just so many hoops and jumps to go through to open up a country. But really, like you mentioned, there's really only two things, as you mentioned. It's the tax for the country that they just check in, but the second thing is security. So I have a lot of Spanish friends in Mexico that would very much like to get their hands, be involved, but we all know that the security, unfortunately, for delivery is not the best. So that's actually the most difficult challenge. I think you're right. I think the most difficult challenge is not even so much the tax. I think it's really more the security, because exactly what you have expressed through this conversation, they're hoarding it. And they know that we're waking up and we're learning and we want it and we're getting it, and it's taking it out of their hands and they don't like it. And I'm okay with that because I'm a bit of a rebel. I like to call it disruptor. Okay, fine, I'm a rebel. So thank you everybody for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking your time to learn about our 7K metals opportunity.
Yes, Carla had a question.
Oh, sorry, honey. Who had a question? I didn't see. Carolee, did you have a question, honey?
Darla.
Oh, Darla. Sorry, Darla. Go ahead.
Well, Curtis, when you were talking about the 7 countries, I got the US, Canada, UK, Aussie, and New Zealand and Ireland. What was the last one you said?
Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah, I've written it in the chat too.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Good question. Yeah, it's really important. So even if you're in a different country, if you do have somebody you trust in another country, remember what Curtis had mentioned. You can save it in the vault, or you can have it directly delivered. My coins show up. I am just dumbfounded by this. Any of my orders that I request, they're in my hands within 48 hours into Canada. I was actually surprised. I was really surprised, because anything else I've ever ordered from the States lately has been taking anywhere minimum 5 days, but as much as 2 weeks. So to have this happen in 48 hours is dumbfounding. And I think 2 times I got it in 24 hours. I was just like, whoa. I go, now that's service. I think my FedEx guy is starting to go, what exactly is it that you're ordering? Oh, I said, shh, it's a secret. Not really, I'm sharing. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And Curtis, thank you so much for your generosity with your wisdom and your time and your support. I'm just so grateful and blessed to be part of this community. I can't even begin to tell you what an amazing idea that these 4 founders put together and have created empowerment to the average guy, which is not going to be average anymore, because now we know the secret. So our wealth foundation is going to be sturdy and strong and moving forward in a much far greater direction. So thank you everybody for joining me, and hope I will see you next week. And please invite a guest. And if you're interested in getting started, please, please, please reach out to the person who invited you or your partner in Noble Goldman. Or if you just want some more questions answered, please reach out to me as well. I'm happy to do it. I am your concierge for 7K Metals in Noble Goldman, and I look forward to linking arms and hearts with you on this journey towards wealth, strategy, security, and the best offense with sound money, gold and silver, God's money. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Nice meeting everyone.